In today's show, Kozzy Pickett, $1.4 million over 9 seasons. Is he worth it? We talk Hall of Fame and take you inside the latest at West Coast and Fremantle. Welcome to the West Sports Show. We are brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. I am joined, as always, by the very well-informed Mitchell Woodcock. How are you, Mitch?
Oh, I've got a case of the hiccups, so if I have to stop all of a sudden, it's because I'm just, doing the
magic of podcasting.
I know, it's beautiful, isn't it? No, I'm well. It was lovely today out at West Coast. Bit chilly. I know you were out at Freo. We'll get into that later, but geez, it's been a big week in footy.
It was very cold at Freo this morning, but it didn't stop Alex Pearce running around with his shirt off, Mitch.
He's from Tasmania.
You can take the boy out of Tasmania, but you can't take the Tasmanian out of the boy.
I remember the first time I went to Tassie, I went to Launceston for the Eagles Hawthorn the day Tyler Brockman tore them apart and they won by 100 points and it was a disaster for the Eagles. I remember I went for a walk out of my hotel for about 2 minutes and I was straight back in my hotel and just did laps of that because it was too cold.
Well, I've told this story a dozen times, I reckon, on the podcast over the years, and I will tell it again. I'm walking down the main street of Devonport, and it was summer, and I was wearing a jumper because it was not warm.
Yeah.
And a local walked past me and said, "Hot enough for you?" And I said, "No, it's not. That's why I'm wearing a jumper." I was very grumpy. But there you go. Look, let's start with the big news from this morning. Kozzy Pickett.
Wow.
As speculated, as predicted, a $1.4 million, wait for it, over 9 seasons. So was a target of Freo, was a target of probably West Coast as well. He's not coming now. Is he worth it, Mitch?
It depends on the way you look at it. So Kozzy Pickett's a premiership player and he's a fine player. He's 24 from memory. Never been an All-Australian, never won a best and fairest. It's an exorbitant amount of money to pay for someone like that. It's the same conversation I'm having with people about Tom de Koning and the St Kilda deal that's about the similar money. But these days, with the salary cap increase, it's like paying someone $800,000 5 years ago over 5 years. It's now this is the new mega deal that are going to be normal soon. Like these salary caps are increasing ever so much. So you got to say yes, he's going to be there for the next decade. He's like I said, he's only 24. You expect him to be an All-Australian this year. We've seen him win games off his own boot and tear teams apart. That game against Fremantle at the MCG will be one of the best individual performances of the year. He was just dynamite. So, yeah, you've got to say the way they are, yes. And the way Melbourne list is building, I'm not down on them. Like, I don't think they're going to play finals this year, but even with some guys like Gawn and May and that near in the
what
end.
they look like with Lou Jackson in the side.
We don't do that yet. Don't you? But I'm looking at the way they've got, Langford, Salem's still young. Like their mix is beautiful, Melbourne. They're actually set up for another run in the next 5 years. And Pickett's going to be the centre of it.
More key forwards though. I think Melksham and Pickett have been the real keys to their forward line this year. I want to see some more key tools.
Yeah, and I think they'll go pursuing one. They tried for Jake Waterman last year, and it's why Jake Waterman they tore his deal up, and it's why he signed a 5-year extension close to $1 million a year. Don't be shocked if they're one of the teams that, for example, like Jai Amos is signed for a while, but don't be shocked if Melbourne go for those kind of players and look for an Amos or try and pry some of those forwards out of different clubs. But yeah, look, Van Rooyen's still young. I think he's got a bit in him as well. And they can draft some really good forwards as well. They're big on Luca Kentfield, who they got in last year's mid-season draft. They've already re-signed him. So, yeah, watch out with the way they go about it. I love Melbourne. It's list build, and I think Kozzy Pickett could be the centrepiece of it, albeit it is a lot of money to pay.
I would rate him as one of the few players you could say can turn a game in a short space of time in the competition. I think Shea Bolton's one. Is he worth 1.4 over 9 seasons? I'm going to say no. I'm restricting that to sort of key forwards, I think. But look, he's an exciting player. He puts bums on seats. I understand what he does for that team. So interesting the turnaround in his attitude because didn't want to be there at the start of the year.
Didn't want to be there at the end of last year.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating, The one thing I will say on this is and this argument will come up on multiple occasions, I hate he's on $1.4 million a year and he's not playing like a $1.4 million player. Well, you know what? He's being paid that, but that's because what the club offered him.
Well, that's what the market dictates.
Yep. So it's not his fault. He doesn't have to play to that level. That's what they've offered him, and that's what he's played to that level now. That's what the offers come for. So I don't like that saying. It's a major saying they have with Tim Kelly. Tim Kelly's deal was never even close to that. So, yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes, but there is going to be a lot of attention on him justly. He's a star of the competition. Like I said, I expect him to be an All-Australian this year, and I expect him to be able to hold up the end of the bargain.
So Freo is in the mix, right, for Kozzy Pickett. Now it frees them up. So do they now have another ping at Chad Warner in 2 years? So he's extended his contract by 2 years.
Yep.
When that 2 years up, we know West Coast are into him. Is Freo in the mix now?
Yeah, I think they are. And like different players, Kozzy Pickett and Chad Warner, but fundamentally goal-kicking guys who can play in the midfield. That's the different ways.
Goal-kicking midfielders are just invaluable.
Yeah, and look, they do it in different ways. So I'm not saying they're the same player, but they add the same attributes. You know what I mean? They're guys that can average 22 disposals and kick goals. Kozzy probably will kick more goals.
And lay a few tackles.
Yep, and Warner would be more disposals and less goals. Fremantle have a problem with their goal-kicking mids. They don't have any. Like Sarong, Brayshaw, even Hayden Young, they're not big goal-kicking mids.
Well, you could sort of say Shea Bolton is a goal-kicking mid, even though he's really more of a high forward.
And he's playing that now a bit more where he's playing that midfield role and rolling forward. But Kozzy Pickett would have been perfect for that because you could have one of them in the forward line and the other one playing that goal-kicking mid. Warner comes in, you could have him playing the goal-kicking mid and Bolton more in the forward line. Whatever you want to do about it. I'm curious to see who else they go for, though. There's options out there. This isn't the only option. You know, Kozzy Pickett is the best option. But David Walls, I give a lot of raps for, and I'm a big believer in David Walls. He'll either go patiently and restructure deals because they've got to pay some guys like, Young and that are on big deals. They'll either front-end some of those contracts, they can go to managers and change the way those pay structures work. So they'll give them a bit more money now to free up a bit of money that in 2 years' time, maybe Chad Warner's back on the table. There's different ways. Salary caps aren't as structured as people think. You can play with them year to year. It's not we've signed them for this year they're worth that. If you've got a bit of extra cash, you can throw it around and change up the way your pay structures are to ensure that you can get guys in. They're clever at this list managers, and it'll be interesting to see where Fremantle land on it.
So the other big news the last 24 hours, as predicted again, Tom Harley is now the new Chief Operating Officer of the AFL. He'll operate underneath the CEO, Andrew Dillon, and there's an expectation down the track he would take over the role from Andrew Dillon. I know that Simon Garlick was in that mix, tapped out of it a while ago. I think, certainly the AFL were interested in Simon Garlick. So,
and why wouldn't you be? He's a great administrator. Tom Harley, runs an excellent ship at Sydney, albeit the Dean Cox era hasn't started well. You have to admire the way they seamlessly transitioned in what was a really difficult circumstance after that grand final into Cox. Like, they did it very well. That comes from good leadership.
Of course.
And Tom Harley is a good leader. They're in a difficult market over there, and Sydney are a powerhouse club. Like, don't deny, when they get 30,000 at the SCG, that's like getting 80,000 at the MCG. That's a success.
I think Sydney are well set up now. They've got the loyal supporter base, and of course, just down the road, GWS is really working hard to get that. It's nowhere near that yet. So,
and I love the move though, Quarters, because it's a footy guy. Well, he's an ex-footy player. He knows footy industries, but he's a smart businessman. You need football people in some of these roles, not all the time, but some of the time, and I think it's a good appointment.
Former Geelong Premiership player, former Geelong captain.
Yep.
Obviously now that was the CEO at Sydney Swans. He will be responsible for AFL clubs, say funding, player collective bargaining agreements, salary caps, player salary caps, footy department soft caps, competition structure, and AFL operations. So, overseeing industry initiatives and projects such as Gather Round and Tasmania, as well as integrity and security. So that will be Tom Harley. One criticism that was made of Greg Swan, we saw appointed when they split the football department between Laura Kane and Greg Swan, and now Tom Harley coming in, raiding clubs. They're raiding AFL clubs. I don't understand that criticism. Aren't you after the best people available in your industry? And they are among the best people available in that industry.
Well, 100%. So imagine you're Don Pike and you've got something you want to address with the AFL and you ring Tom Harley. You don't have to explain things to Tom Harley. He's a CEO of a club. You say to him, X example in our football department and we have a problem with this. And Tom goes, yep, I can see how that's a problem and would either enact or whatever. But my point being is you take people out of football clubs because they've got the experience then to deal with these football clubs. There's 18 clubs at the moment. There's going to be 19 in the next few years. There's going to be 20
Well, hopefully there's 19 in the next few years if Tasmania can get its SIJT together.
Yeah, exactly. But the point being is there's going to be hopefully 20 CEOs, 20 presidents over close to 500 players in the AFL. Like, let's not, more. So let's not, I think it's important you have good football people in a lot of these roles. You can have other people from business areas and that to complement them, but at the core, you need these people. And they come from football clubs. What are you supposed to pick them out of country football? Maybe, but no. No, you raid clubs and then you bring the next best people through. They'll find the next Tom Harley, Sydney. They'll work it out. They're a good club, and good clubs do this sort of stuff.
Now, Tuesday night was a big night in terms of the AFL, the Hall of Fame inductees, and congratulations to the family of the late East Perth player George Owens. 195 games for East Perth between 1917 and 1932. 7 premierships with the Royals, or Old Easts. Well done to him. And also, too, we're going to claim her, Mitch. We're going to claim Daisy as our own.
Well, we have to.
Daisy Pearce, 55 games for Melbourne, 2017 to 22, 25 goals. Famous premiership, the end of her career in 2022. 10 VFLW premierships. And, of course, now coach of the West Coast AFLW side, has been a pioneer of the AFLW, thoroughly deserved. Congratulations also to Peter Darley from the Sandful. South Adelaide player, Luke Hodge, Hawthorn, obviously a 4-time premiership player, finished his career at Brisbane. John Leadham, the late John Leadham from the Northern Territory and Tasmanian Football League. From the Northern Tasmanian and Tasmanian Football Leagues. Gary Lyon, Melbourne stalwart, now very big in the media. Erin Phillips, and I'll get on to her in a moment. 46 games for Adelaide, 20 for Port Adelaide, 3 AFLW premierships, 2 AFLW best and fairest. That's on the back of a WNBA career, 2 WNBA titles. What an amazing sporting career she's had. And, of course, Nick Riewoldt, long distinguished career with St Kilda, 6 times best and fairest. The highlights of the night, I thought Gary Lyons was a very, very humble speech. I loved every second of it. Very funny, very humble. But I loved Erin Phillips' moment when, so she's the first father-daughter combination to be elevated to the Hall of Fame. Of course, Greg Phillips, who played for Port Adelaide and Collingwood. He's sitting in the audience and she turns to him and she says, how do you tell a 13-year-old girl that she can't play football anymore, which is, of course, was her passion at the time and which is what he had to do as a father. And he was in tears. And, of course, her answer was, well, now, how do you feel we're both stand alongside each other in the Hall of Fame? So I thought it was a beautiful moment. I really love the Hall of Fame night.
I love the Hall of Fame night too because there's a mutual understanding amongst everybody in the industry that it's kept a secret until the night. You don't know.
Yep.
Like, there's obviously articles prepared that people know, there's all that, but there's no leaks. It's just this beautiful ceremony that everybody in the public finds out at the same time. And it's one of those things, it's one of those rare things that nobody wants to break that story, even if you know, even if you've got a hint. It's just, it's perfect. I love the respect it's got. The Australian Football Hall of Fame. Erin Phillips is, you couldn't help but get a tear in your eye watching that. It was incredible. Daisy Pearce, if Jan Cooper's the pioneer for women's football in Australia and especially in WA, Daisy's a close second. Just an incredible career. And I tell you what, if she could manage to win a premiership at West Coast, it would be unreal because she would literally it would cap off what already is an amazing and obviously a Hall of Fame career. Nick Riewoldt was my favourite player growing up as a kid. I just loved,
Were you a St Kilda man?
No, I just loved Nick Riewoldt. I haven't grown since I was like 13, so I'm short now, but I was quite tall as a kid and I used to play centre half forward and I loved Nick Riewoldt. And Gary Lyon, I grew up with the Footy Show massive when I was young, and he was obviously a big part of that, eventually taking over as host. And
Dad played for Hawthorn, he was there at the Hall of Fame night.
And he's
didn't
one of those,
qualify through father-son, sadly.
He's one of those guys that I watched on YouTube because I was too young to understand at the time how good he was, but you wanted to get an idea of this guy they spoke about, and the stats don't, over 400 goals and over 200 games. There's nothing to sneeze at, but they don't really tell the story of Gary Lyon, an All-Australian in both centre-half back and centre-half forward. That's a captain of a club that nearly
Not too many have done that. Of course, the great Matthew Pavlich, All-Australian as a midfielder, defender and forward. So it's pretty hard to do.
And they nearly merged. He was the captain at the time, and they nearly merged with your Hawks.
Yeah, well, thank goodness that didn't happen.
But like imagine being the captain of those two sides of that. They're just some amazing stories, and then obviously you get the ones of the legends from the SANFL and obviously Waffle. It's a great night. I love it.
So, Mitch, you are fresh from West Coast training. What did you see?
I'm fresh, all right. It was a bit cold. Yeah, so obviously we had the Andrew McQualter press conference. First off, Tom Cole will miss with a hamstring injury. It looks like it's a bit more serious than it was first thought, so we expect him to miss numerous weeks. They're unsure of the severity yet and how long. He was out there running with Elliot Yeo.
Shame his form's been really building the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, I thought he actually was really good. He obviously got dropped earlier this year ahead of that Carlton gather-round clash alongside Tim Kelly when Andrew McQualter really made a statement after that disastrous loss to GWS.
Trying to work out what his structure and team and his mix is.
I think he's a really good leader, Tom Cole, down in defensive end. But so he's going to miss a while. Out there running with Elliot Yeo, which was a positive. A lot of the talk this week's about Tom McCarthy and, again, whether he will debut 17, 18 days after being drafted. I don't think he will. I think he might be named as part of the extended squad.
Okay.
But just reading between the lines, Andrew McQualter kind of said he hasn't trained fully with the group. He hasn't done a main training. He was in Melbourne last week.
Well, no, he's trained on Tuesday with them.
But it hasn't done a main training, like a full, like they do today. Yep.
Well,
today was their first one. So I think they were a bit reluctant to go with him just yet. And obviously, Bo Allen's the big talking point this week. They've conceded they've made a mistake. I haven't liked the way they've managed Bo Allen in recent weeks.
Being a sub and hardly getting any game time.
Yeah, he's only played 28 minutes in the last 2 weeks. 8 minutes at the weekend, didn't touch the footy. Came on in the heat of the battle when they were getting rolled by North Melbourne. I expect him, he'll play a full game at somewhere, whether it be down in Mandurah against Peel Thunder for West Coast Waffle side or against Carlton at Optus Stadium on Sunday, but he'll play a full game. He won't be the sub. I'd expect him to come in for Tom Cole. Wouldn't surprise me if there's not too many changes, but I'm curious to see where it goes. And
well, certainly they're going to get more bang for buck, Mitch, with their inside 50 entries.
Yeah,
we'll
interesting.
Talk about that in a moment.
But the week before, they kicked straight to keep themselves in against Geelong. The week later, it goes the other way. It's an interesting one. And obviously, but yourself, I was at West Coast.
I was down at Freo. I was down at Coburn, and yes, it was very cold, but you couldn't tell Alex Pearce, who was running around with his shirt off. But so interestingly, Sean Darcy, been much talk about him and his partnership with Luke Jackson in the ruck, coming up against Tristan Cherry this week. Darcy and Michael Walters just walked laps. Okay. Nathan Fyfe just did a bit of solo train, not much at all. Just stood by himself in the goal square at one point and then left the field. Jager O'Meara also was a no-show. He just watched. So what I take from that, I'm not too worried about that. They've been mixing up their sessions, Freo. Tuesdays have been sometimes big, Thursdays not so. And they're coming off a bye, don't forget, and also it's a Saturday night game. So I'd still expect Darcy to play. Michael Walters is coming back through the waffle this week. First game this season. Rapt to see that. Good luck to him. Fyfe, I'm interested in what happens. Came on as the sub in the last game. Played a very good last quarter. Do they persevere with him or do they sub someone else in, someone like a Dudley, and perhaps Fyfe gets more match minutes? Not sure how they're going to go there yet. They're certainly going to need a bit of clearance, Grunt, because North Melbourne is a very underrated midfield in terms of clearance numbers. So that's going to be interesting. Really good to see Brandon Walker out there and looking full of energy and verve. He was listed as 3 weeks away from that shoulder, had some shoulder surgery. But within 7 days, he's down to a week, so he's really come in quickly. I'm expecting him to come back next week. So that's really handy.
Did he come back through the waffle?
I think he'll come back through the waffle. He's been out for a fair while. I think with Cooper Simpson out, and Cooper was there today with the arm in a sling, just talking to teammates. Good to see him as well. So they're important players, those running backs for them.
Yeah, so what I'll say about Brandon Walker is I think they missed him a lot, especially in that game against Melbourne with Pickett. He's their best shutdown small. Heath Chapman is probably better at being freed up and kicking the ball. I know Walker frustrates a few Freo fans with his disposal at times, and I agree his decision-making at times isn't great. But as that lockdown small back, I think he actually has really been missed. I think he's a vital part of that back line. I think he frees up Jordan Clark and he frees up Heath Chapman to really rebound. Yep. So massive to get him back into that team. I think they'll balance quite nicely. I wrote during the week when Hayden Young comes back, I'd like to see him go back to defence and
running laps today as he has been. Looks progressing well. I think he's 6 weeks away.
I think they're going to hold him back. I think 6 weeks is. I think they'd probably be closer to 4 if they wanted to rush him. I reckon 6 weeks is. It's the third time he's done it. It's going to be. Let's go slow and steady. But
if they're going to make the 8 go deep, they need him.
Yeah, I think if we were a month out from finals, he'd be playing finals. We're a little way out. They can still give him a month lead into finals and then have a crack if they're around the mark. I think that's what they're going to aim for. Smart with this guy. He's going to be. I still think he's going to be their best player in 2 years' time, in my opinion. I just think he's an elite ball user.
I think he is an elite ball.
And
That
if
is a
he's
big
not gonna
call
be
'cause they have
next
some
year.
talent in that side. Luke Jackson, Shea Bolton. That is a big
Exactly.
call.
I just think he's too good. But I'd want to see him go back to halfback for a bit. I think they need that weapon there.
Now, let's pick some winners, Mitch. But before we do, let's hear from our good friend David Short from Tab Touch.
Shorty's tips.
G'day, it's producer Josh here, and joining me in the studio is David Short. Welcome.
Thank you, Josh.
Who is your heater for this week?
Heater this week are Collingwood. The Pies head to their mid-season bye on top of the ladder. Record of 11 wins and 2 losses. They're into $3.45 now, clear cut at the top of the premiership race.
Can anyone stop the Pies? You're cooler.
Cooler is Nick Larkey from the Kangaroos. He's had a wonderful few seasons, but he's well down on that at the moment. He's managed just 8 goals in his last 7 games, which is really down on what he's been producing in recent times.
See if he can bounce back against the Dockers at Optus. Your hot tip?
Hot tip this week, I'll go a multi. Western Bulldogs, Hawthorn, who've got a great record down in Tassie, Geelong and Freo, $3.28, those 4 to win this weekend.
And on the drift?
The Bombers, they've been pretty good the last couple of weeks, but they've drifted from $4.60 out to $5. Pretty tough this weekend up against the Cats.
That will be. And your player to watch this weekend?
He's a favourite of mine, Paul Curtis from the Kangaroos. He's kicked 3 goals in 5 of his 9 games this season. He's paying $2.10 to kick 2 or more, $4.70 to kick 3 goals or more. He's done that 5 of 9, so that might be a nice play this weekend.
Love it. Thanks, Shorty. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Josh.
Tonight, 5:30 p.m, Marvel Stadium, St Kilda, $3.65. The Western Bulldogs, $1.28 on Tab Touch. Interesting this. This is where St Kilda can win it, Mitch. Low balls inside 50 and let the smalls get to work. So Jack Higgins has kicked 29 goals, 5th in the Coleman medal this year and his most through the first 13 rounds of the season. We know they're going to be well set up behind the ball. That's the Ross Lyon ethos. But I think it's important for them to just take control of the exit point. So the 3 players for me, the three Western Bulldogs players, Bont, Libba, Ed Richards. Now, we know Ross Lyon, he's got a theory that you don't tag the untaggable. So I don't think you can tag Bontempelli. Liberatore is a different sort of beast. He's a stoppage beast. So you've got to be defensive on him. But I think we go for a Windhager on an Ed Richards. That's where I think they can cause some havoc in this game. Yeah, when I said the exit point, so it's not so much if you can win the stoppage, great. If you can't, you've got to make sure you got it covered on the exit points. We know how good they are at spreading the dogs, so that's where they can win. However, having said that, I'm picking the Bulldogs. Won 9 of their last 10 matches at Marvel by an average winning margin of 48 points. Of course, the loss was last week to my boys, Hawthorn. Aaron Norton failed to have a shot at goal for the first time this season against the Hawks. The 4th time in his last 4 games that he hasn't taken a mark inside 50. So some form queries on him. Callum Wilkie perhaps goes to him. Good to see Sam Darcy back in that side.
100%.
He'll obviously be on managed minutes. But look, I think can St Kilda trouble them? Yes. Will they win? No. I'm picking the Western Bulldogs by about 19 points.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Bulldogs. Great to see Darcy back in. You know, he's one of the players you just want to watch. You turn on the game for this reason. I love the way they're structuring up the Dogs. They were disappointing last week. Norton obviously out of form, but Darcy returning will help that. They'll be able to swing some guys forward if they need to and lob and stuff because, let's face it, St Kilda don't have a tall forward line. So I expect the Dogs to win. But, yeah, something about St Kilda, I just can never count them fully out. Like it wouldn't shock me if they get belted tonight. Wouldn't shock me if they won.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I just can't predict them.
They are very much in that group of clubs. They're very unpredictable. Okay, so Friday night, 5:40 p.m. Launceston, UTAS Stadium. Interesting a Friday night game in Tassie. Apparently -2 is the forecast. So you talk about cold. Remember Clarko running around in Marnacrola and Canberra during the hailstorm with his shirt off? Well, I think it's going to be pretty cold there. Look, I'm picking the Hawks, but only on the back of the fact that they've won their last 7 matches there. We know it's a fortress. That dates back to round 10, 2023, by an average margin of 40 points. So they do it well there. Scrimshaw and Watson chances to come back in. Cloud over Warple, so that's a concern. I think the 2 key players here are Jai Newcomb and Jordan Dawson. They're real barometers for both teams. You've got to try and at least neutralise both of those players if you are to win. Fascinated by the matchups of the Hawthorn defence, Battle Barrass Weddle and Walker Philthorpe Fogarty. That's going to be really important. But here's the stat. Since round 8, Adelaide has conceded 63 points per game, the fewest in the league. It has conceded a goal from 16.7% of its opponents inside 50s, also ranked first. My point is, we know they've got a good midfield. We know they've got a really threatening forward line. I think this defence might be the most underrated in the comp. Worrell, Keane, Butts, Hinge, Michelini. I think they're a really good defence. And I reckon they can finish top four. And I reckon they can challenge the power teams like Brisbane and Collingwood if they get it right in September because they've got the right mix.
Yeah, it's a smaller back line in terms of there's no real key defender.
Yep.
Interesting, Hawthorn are one of the few teams that have the defensive depth to be able to match the tall threes at Adelaide. I know Kane Corn's a big critic of this and doesn't think it works and doesn't want Taylor Walker in the side. Look, this is one of those games you just pick on venue.
Yeah,
and it's I'd be picking Adelaide if it was anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, so would I.
It's just because of where it is. I'm like you now. I was a bit iffy on Adelaide. I kept expecting them to fall over. They haven't done it yet. If they lost this game by 20 points, it wouldn't faze me, but wouldn't shock me if they won either again. But yeah, like Hawthorn for me.
We just talk about unpredictable teams. Well, this next game.
Oh, here we go.
Gabba, Saturday, 11:20 a.m. Brisbane, $1.33. The Giants, $3.30. It's like the Forrest Gump box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get.
I've given up on the Giants. I've given up.
Well, I tipped them to win the flag. How do you reckon I'm feeling?
My mate's a Giants fan. I messaged him last night and I said they're all talent and no ticker at the moment. They're like the Tin Man from bloody, what do you call it? Wizard of Oz. Oh, they've just... I can't explain them. Like, how do you have that much talent and not be able to produce? Where's the Orange Tsunami gone?
Yeah, I know. My theory on them is they did lose a lot of players in the off-season and it really has affected their midfield depth and that's really important. So I think that's the key for them. Key players here, Charlie Cameron averaging against the Giants, 13.5 disposals, 2.7 goals and 1.2 score assists since 2022. What a game for Sam Taylor, though, last start. 16 intercept possessions, 7 intercept marks, and 11 spoils. Only the second player to have those numbers or better. He's an incredible player, the Swan District's kid, isn't he? Oh, by the way, I'm picking the Lions. It's at home.
Yeah, so I'm picking the Lions too. And shout out to my mate Brandon Girardi, who I think is the only Giants supporter in WA. I've got no idea why he is, but I think he is. And it's, I'm flabbergasted by this team, Quarters. It is the biggest mystery to me as to how this team, with so much talent and is such a good coach, is playing so poorly.
Well, they're gettable, Brisbane. Interesting stat. I mean, whether it's the Joe Danaher factor, I'm not sure, but averaging 76.8 points at the Gabba this season. It's his third lowest average at the venue. So,
well, they'll be right next year, don't worry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, with Oscar Allen. That's
there
what we think.
You go.
By the way, the Tin Man is a much-loved character. MCG, Saturday, 2:15 p.m. Essendon, $5. Geelong, $1.17.
We're in a mood today, aren't we?
Yeah. The Bombers, mate. Look, they're on the right track. I think they're on the right track. They've got some really talented youth.
2 more debutants.
Yes.
Lachlan Blackiston from East Fremantle, the mid-season draftee, and Archer May from Subiaco, formerly of Richmond VFL. Both of them to debut against the Cats.
Good luck to them.
Good luck to them, boys, but you won't be singing the song because the Cats will get you.
I think so. I really do. I don't know what to say. I'm picking Geelong.
Yeah, Bailey Smith should be back. Geelong will win. Interesting. What'd you make, just quickly, the fireside catch-up, Andrew Dillon driving down there to see the Geelong hierarchy and talk to Bailey Smith? I like it.
I love it.
This is a new era in footballer, and you've got to find a way to bring in the rules and the boundaries for them. And I like the personal touch.
Well, I just like the fact that the hierarchy and upper hierarchy of the AFL is keeping in touch with, and there's been some disenchantment from Chris Scott this year, and Bailey's obviously been just a headline king. So I really like the fact that he's actually driven the hour down the Geelong Road.
I reckon Scott is a bit like that Ross Lyon saying he used to have as, support the player, challenge the behaviour. Yeah. I reckon behind closed doors, they're challenging the behaviour. Out the front of the public, they're supporting Bailey Smith, which is the right way to go about it.
Oh, but he's done too much wrong. I'm not really a big fan of the finger, mate. I think it encourages kids to do it, and I think it's... But, you've got to love the way he's playing footy. I've got him as Brownlow favourite at the moment. So, Adelaide Oval Sunday, another game where it's unpredictable, 1:20 p.m. Port Adelaide, $1.80. Melbourne, $2.02. We've spoken about Kozzy Pickett already today. I think he and Jake Melksham are the keys to that forward line. I'm going to pick Port on the basis of the home ground advantage, but I'm not confident. Interesting Port for me. They've got such a talented midfield. On paper, the most talented midfield in the competition, but they cough up clearances, Mitch. Listen to this stat. They have conceded 41.9 points per game from clearances this season, ranked last. So that's your reason.
So it's not just coughing up clearances. It's when you score from clearances, quite often it's the effective clearance that comes out. So you can get rid of a clearance. Not all clearances are the same. So if you clear the ball a dirty clearance, doesn't mean you're going to score from it. You're probably going wide or something. These guys are obviously letting direct footy out of the clearance and allowing teams with little pressure to hit targets up forward. So it's a lack of accountability from their talented midfield, and someone's got to do it. I think Connor Rosey needs to be back in there. I think they need to work it out.
Take him from halfback, put him in back in?
Yeah, it's worked, but it now needs to change. I think you just need your best players around the ball.
First game he played at halfback against Hawthorn and go around.
And they're losing. Like Jason Horne-Francis is a big loss. I don't care what people say. He's one of the best players in the comp at the moment. Zach Butters, they've got to start laying some tackles and putting pressure on.
Here's another question. So what do you think Port's game style is at the moment?
No idea.
See, there you go.
No, I'm being honest. Like, I don't understand
So
it.
do you think there is an issue here with the handover?
Yes.
Ken Hinkley to Josh Carr.
But I've been
Do you
strong
think
on
the
it.
players are trying to play the way they know Josh Carr wants them to, but Ken's still got his own philosophies in place?
Well, I think Josh Carr's probably having more of a say behind closed doors than
No
he ever
question,
has
but you
before,
must
and I
be-
think the message is muddled.
Must be confusing.
I
for the
think
players.
as soon as they're out of finals contention, which they already are, but I mean mathematically, Ken has to do the right thing and hand the reins over because this team is not going anywhere at the moment.
I'm not big on mid-season coaching changes, but I think when you've got a coach, when it's in place, I think it's okay.
I don't think it's a mid-season coaching change because it's already the change is done. You're just bringing it forward a little bit. I think where I praised Sydney before for the Longmuir Cox one, Port Adelaide have botched this big time.
Of course, I've mucked the order up, haven't I?
We've gone the WA teams last.
Okay. All right.
I was going to save you there.
I'm going. Okay, we're going. Optus Stadium, Saturday, 5:30 p.m. 5:35 p.m. Don't get there too early. North Melbourne, $5.50. The Dockers, $1.15. Cherry versus Darcy - Jackson, massive for me. Fifth in hitouts, first to advantage, and second in clearances. Tristan Cherry, he is some player. We saw him in the flesh in Bunbury.
That last quarter was one of the best quarters of football I've seen from an individual player. That midfield was dynamite, North Melbourne, in that last quarter.
Yep.
It's because of Tristan Cherry. In saying that, Fremantle should win this game. If they don't, it's a real big dent to their finals. They haven't been great coming out of buys, but need to win this. Great to see Michael Walters back too this weekend. Going to play for Peel Thunder down in Mandurah. So, it's also an early game. So if you want to get on the train, get down to Mandurah, 12:10, watch the Eagles and Peel Thunder, then get the train back up the stadium.
Now, a plea to the Freo supporters. So 30,000, tracking for 30. They want 38.40 to make it work because Freo's actually paid for this game. You know what I mean? North sold this game. Freo's invested in this game.
Yeah, the WA government and Freo and everybody's invested here.
So if you're a Freo fan, you've got your extra fixture. Turn up.
Well, I've been big on Fremantle fans anyway.
Now,
I don't think they've turned up enough to support the team as it is. But if they don't turn up this weekend, I tell you what, they're going to cost themselves because if they've got a list that can win a premiership, and the more home games they get, the better chance they're going to do it. So if you're there, Freo fans, turn up, buy a ticket, rock up, wave your scarf, get behind your boys. They're going to win 4 in a row. They should be top 4 by the end of this season, but they're not going to get there if you don't help.
Scary stare down the camera there from you.
A bit of Pat Voss.
Luke Jackson averaging 24 pause disposals, 11.4 contested possessions, 12.4 hit outs to advantage, and 7.4 score involvements in wins this season.
I'm tipping the Dockers,
I'm
by
going
the
to
way.
take you back to last year against North Melbourne, the highest rated game for Freo since Nat Fyfe in 2019, Luke Jackson.
Yeah, it was
so expect
incredible.
him to play a big part. I'm tipping Freo as well, mate. If they have to win this game, and they will win this game. The other WA game. So Optus Stadium, Sunday, 4:10 p.m. West Coast, $4.20, $4.25. Carlton, $1.22. So frustrating watching the Eagles last week.
Yeah, the inaccuracy.
Ball kicking.
Yeah.
What did we put it down to? I mean, was it just ball kicking? Was it the
Well, no,
swirly breeze up high?
I don't think it was a swirly breeze up high. I know that there was talk, and Oscar Allen said so, but I'm of the opinion that once it crept in at about 5 or 6 behinds, and I asked McCall to this after the game, and he said it was part of being able to he was happy that players did this, but I think they took it on their own backs to try and kick the goal. And instead of playing to the setups and hitting the better targets, they were all blazing and trying to kick these, just try to be the guy that got the roll started. And once you do that, you end up with 111 and you're looking down, 114, I think it was at one stage.
I'll tell you who they
and you're
should-
just struggling.
I'll tell you who they should target is Jack Williams more, because he's scored from 30.8% of the time that he's been targeted inside forward 50, the second highest percentage of the top 75 for targets. I want to double out two players. Elijah Hewitt finished with an equal career high 22 disposals.
Fantastic.
And 14 contested against North Melbourne. And Liam Baker, who's been terrific all season. The only player in the AFL to be averaging 20-plus disposals, 10-plus contested possessions, and 6-plus intercepts this season. So has certainly delivered. They
100%.
Went out of their way to get him, and he's delivered.
And he's going to be vital this week down in the back line with Liam Duggan, the leadership of that young defence, without Jeremy McGovern and Tom Cole. They're going to be really needed. What I'll say about Elijah Hewitt, I love the fact that in that third quarter, when they were running those stringer behinds, he takes the mark from about 35 out, and there were two blokes running back, and he probably could have passed the responsibility off. And this young man went, "Nope, we need a goal. I'm going to kick it." He had to kick it. Like, he had no, if he missed, it was a terrible look. But he was 21 years old. He said, "This is on me. I'm a winner. I'm going to go back and slot this goal." And he did it. And I love that brash confidence. I love this kid. He's the kid you can build this team around.
Who plays on Charlie Curnow?
Harry Edwards.
Yeah, a good game from Harry Edwards last week. Kept Nick Larkey goalless. Curnow averages 16.8 disposals, 9.8 marks, 12.4 scoring involvements, and importantly, just a tick under 7 goals a game in his last 4 against the Eagles.
Glad I'm up the media box eating the Rubens while that's happening. But
no, Harry was a great game last week.
Well, his best game as an
Sandy
Eagle.
Brock showing a bit. There's some real, as much as we want to see Gov come back into that team, but that is in the hands of the AFL concussion panel. You can see some growth, can't you?
But I'm going to tip Carlton in this one.
So
I think
am I.
Harry McKay will come back in. I think they'll win it quite convincingly. I don't think it'll be as big as it has been previously. I think
Let's
the
hope
average
not.
losing margin in the last 5 or 6 games is about 75 points. But I think it's going to be a tough showing.
Now, Mitch, it's that time of the week again. You know it's our favourite time, that Thirsty Camel mailbag time. This week's special Hans Super Dry 3.5 24-pack bottles, only $52.99 a carton.
Oh, let's go.
In a little way, we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher thanks to Thirsty Camel. Get your questions in for next week to TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email, as we will send you a digital voucher if you're a weekly winner. Got some good mail this week, Mitch. First one from Brendan. Hi. Each week after the match, you see the players celebrating in the change rooms, then doing interviews before a coach speaks to the players. Then usually the players leave and often fly home. Is there any scope for the teams to meet up for a drink in the change rooms after a match? Maybe forego the players hearing from their coaches again. Build in time for the players and even umpires to catch up. In the tough footy environment, it could give players a bit more connection with opposition players and help players' mental health and feel more connected to their footy community. I love this email, and I'd love for it to happen. It used to happen prior to the national competition, but it's just too hard now. Players often just leave. It did used to happen. You'd get both teams in there and the umpires, and it was really interesting because they'd be up at the bar having a drink, buying a beer from a bloke who's just been reported for striking, and they were good days, and they were important catch-ups, but it's just too hard now.
There's a famous story of Luke Shuey when he was back in the Waffle, coming back from an injury, and he was captain of the Eagles at the time, and he was playing against Subiaco at Leaderville Oval. And he walked up, and I think he put a couple of grand on the bar for the Subiaco and West Coast boys. Like, the famous story. And I never forget that the Subiaco players were telling me about it, and they were just chuffed that he did that. Like, it was a sign of respect, and they just thought it was brilliant. Yeah, look, it's one of those ones. Look, for when West Coast and Freo are away, sometimes we do player interview coaches, and you can literally, by the time you're walking out of the stadium to go, right, your
They're
story,
off in a bus to go home.
they're getting in the bus to go home. They're showered and out. They fly sometimes within 3 hours of that game finishing. So, look, love it, yes, but with the tight turnarounds and the schedules and that, just about
I think
impossible.
where possible, it would be a good idea.
But
Where
that's why I
possible.
love events like All Australian, Rising Star, Brownlow, you know,
get
and that's why it's great to see the interstate teams in the grand finals. It's always disappointing when they can't get to Brownlow night.
Our old friend Andrew, hey, Quarters, Should North Melbourne reinvent itself? Maybe market themselves as a club without borders. Very clever. Encouraging large towns and state governments to bid for games. Incrementally building North's finances and supporter base. The Kangaroos could use the mantra of being an anywhere, anytime team, which allows the AFL the flexibility to promote them and the game all around Australia. Being a bit flippant there. But look, I think North, I have a theory on this. I don't mind players selling home games. If they're down that bottom end of the ladder, North Melbourne is only it's making $2.5 million a season for 3 seasons. I'd rather that than them take the money from the pool, from the AFL
Well,
pool.
they're not really
They're
allowed.
generating their own revenue.
Well,
So-
they're not really, they're allowed to, but they're discouraged from doing so because they want, you can't have an opportunity like this presented to yourself and then ask the AFL for money if you reject it.
That's right.
So they have to do that. Look, I said this to someone the other day. I'm big on the North team. I'm not big
While
on
it's
the,
down the bottom end of the ladder, it's fine.
Yeah.
When you're challenging, say you're a mid-table, like Melbourne's a great example. I'm not so big on them selling the games to Alice Springs. They've lost their last 3 there.
Yeah, they're not going by
They're
that.
vital wins for them when they're still challenging for a
But
spot in the
I'm
eight.
not a big fan of the Tassie team coming in because I don't think there's enough elite talent in the AFL to spread across 19
Couldn't
teams.
disagree with you
And
more.
I think that North should move down there.
There is so much talent out there. We just haven't got the pathways to them yet.
Well,
I think there's
well, then
more
let's
than
fix
enough
that
talent.
first and send North to Tassie.
Yeah, no, let's not do that. Let's have our own team in Tassie. I'd love to see it happen and get your acts together down there. High quarters. So far this season, West Coast will have 11 Sunday matches in the first 14 rounds. Again, this week they have a very late evening fixture. Has any other club ever had such a terrible draw? Sunday, bloody Sunday. That's from our
Yeah,
good
well,
friend
Fremantle
Michelle.
did it when they were put down the bottom of the ladder.
Yes,
Guess what, guys? If you play better football, you get better fixtures, you get on prime time. The reason why Collingwood and Carlton, not so much now, but before, the reason why Brisbane, Hawthorn are playing Thursday and Friday night football, because the people want to watch them and they're playing good football. West Coast aren't playing good football, have been being belted by a
Called
lot
the
of
Sunday
games.
graveyard fixture for a reason. Yeah, you're right. Start winning and start playing some more entertaining footy, not the footy we saw last Sunday in Bunbury, and you'll get some.
And the
marquee
Eagles will
fixtures.
tell you that too. You ask Don Pike
yeah,
and John Worsfold, Edgerton McQualter, they'll say we get what we deserve.
Yep.
And it's not fair, but guess what? That's life and it's not fair.
This one from Jermaine. Hello, gents. Why do players, when against the boundary line, not handball the ball into the opponent's leg so they can get a free kick? Well, they do try it every now and then.
Yeah.
The umpires are aware of it, and they don't just give away free kicks. But look, I think we're going to get to the last kick or handball, not the
Cross
last
the line?
touch, not the last touch, because I'd hate to see that.
So you'll be able to knock it over the line
Yeah,
if you're
that's
under
fine. Then
pressure,
it's-
but
then
you're not,
it's-
or fumble it, but
then
you're
it's
not
a
allowed to
throw-in.
handball or kick
as long
over
as
the
it's not insufficient intent. I think you can do that. But the last kick or handball will be automatic kick to the opposition, which is a bit of a shame because I've come to love the old insufficient intent. I think it's added a really important layer to the competition. I think fans love it now. Umpires are pretty good at it. They get it right most times, and it's the new action with umpiring, and it's like the ball. Yeah, that's right. I love it. I think it's
That was terrible for podcasting, by the way.
What?
Just me doing the
Yeah,
action.
I know, it was.
Look, Josh maybe should just get a grab of me saying this because I think I've said it 4 or 5 times this year. Stop changing the rules.
Okay, just a couple more. This one, Sam might have just misread what Craig O'Donoghue's really good story this week about the in-season tournament.
Yes.
I've just watched it. I'm very much in favour of equalisation and have thought through ways to do it, but this seems like a poor option. The equalisation has to affect the AFL season itself, otherwise it isn't a solution. In fact, in this case, it would detract from efforts being made to bring an extra game or two to WA. The North Melbourne experiment also seems to help with the desired goal, while most likely shelving the issue for a while at AFL House and not guaranteeing anything for WA. I have my thoughts on it, but was appalled to hear about this angle. As you asked for a question, I guess mine is, does Mark Evans think this addresses the actual problem? Well, Mark wasn't just suggesting it's on the Gold Coast or in South East Queensland. He was suggesting 3 tournaments with 6 teams each. One would be a lock in WA, so you'd have a fortnight extra footy here in WA. The other would be a lock in South East Queensland, and the third you could probably move it around as long as it's not Victoria. who get a lot of home
Imagine
games.
if it ended up in Geelong.
And it's not no, and it's not and it's not Gather Adelaide because they've obviously got Gather Round. So it was it. I think it's a good idea for equalisation. So
I like it.
The last one on the same subject. This one from Steve, and I think he might be our winner for this very reason. I read with great interest the article by Craig O'Donoghue on Mark Evans' proposal for in-season tournaments in locations outside of Victoria, and his accompanying analysis in support of that proposal. That was hard to get out. I wonder whether Cod had a sense of deja vu when reading Mr. Evans' proposal. It's very similar to a suggestion I made to your mailbag back in April. I find it a bit ironic that my proposal was dismissed by you chaps at the time on the podcast as being too radical. I'm pleased that Cod at least has come around to my way of thinking. And he is quite right, Steve. 14th of April, sent it in. The current fixtures are all over the place as a result of the fast that is the so-called opening round. And he suggested around midway through the year, 3 games be played in each of WA, Queensland and New South Wales involving the 2 local teams and 4 teams from interstate. The local teams could each play an interstate opponent and the other 2 visiting teams play a showcase game similar to the Gather Round. I've left SA out of this because it's already well served and it's clear the AFL intends to leave Gather Round there for the foreseeable future. Well done, Steve. You are this week's winner of the Thirsty Camel voucher. Can you find a better one?
No, Steve, well done. You're Nostradamus.
He is indeed. We have been brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. Chances are you're about to lose, Mitch. For free and confidential support. Sorry, mate.
I normally
Visit
do.
gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review. And don't forget to follow this podcast
I tipped
so you
Hawthorn.
don't miss an episode. Mitch, thanks so much for your time.
I tipped
yet again.
Hawthorn, mate. Jesus.